there's a challenge coming.
Oh, is it really?
There will
Is it a sound challenge?
There will be.
Fudge.
It's not going to be one of the cool singing bowls. It's going to be my dinner bowl.
Oh my God, dude. As long as it's not like that drill again.
Yeah.
That was the most heinous thing to try to make sound with or music with.
Yeah, but it's not a challenge if it's something that's like
Yeah,
nice.
but we're talking about this thing that we do. We both make music as well.
Oh,
And
cool.
Gary and I have this war where we go back and forth, and he likes to give me unusual sounds to turn into music. He's given me quite a few interesting things. I think he's given me clippers, his actual beard trimmer. He gave me, yes, this is how nonsensical it is. He's given me his dryer. He gave me his Black & Decker drill, which was the most horrible thing to make music with. He even cornered me. He said, make it in the style of drill music, which was even worse to have to do. So thank you for that, Gary.
It's like I told him there's a challenge coming. Like, your music's beautiful with all the stuff that you do, but I'm like, I'm not going to give you that. I'm going to give you my dinner bowls that I'm just clanging around and like see what you could do with that. I'm like, you don't get off easy. If it sounds good, that's not a challenge.
Yeah, and it's not going to sound like Stomp or something, where there's like glasses and cups and pots and they're going to do something rhythmic with it. No, he's going to go in there and take like a ladle and just bang all his dirty dishes for about 30 seconds, make some noises and say, go ahead. That's what he does to me. So,
I mean, it's interesting because all the sound, that famous song, all the sounds of the earth are like music. Everything has a sound, and it's a metaphor for how do we transmute shit. I don't know how else to say it,
No, you're spot on. So welcome to the Tragedy Academy, a show created to bridge societal divides in a judgment-free zone using candor and humor. My name is Jay. We are joined today by Jeralyn Glass, internationally celebrated for her multifaceted career spanning from opera singer to crystal sound meditation leader. You've impacted so many fields: music, healing, spirituality. Tell us a little about yourself. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Wow. I mean, music is that language that touches all human beings, no matter what your culture is, no matter what your beliefs are, no matter how much money you make, no matter what. Music is that universal language. And I feel like I've been blessed to have spent a life in music. I started as a young singer on Broadway. My first dream came true at age 19. And then I moved into classical music quite by mistake, but I heard my first opera at the Metropolitan Opera and I was like, whoa, what is that? And I began to study it, and then that happened fairly quickly. And I lived in Europe for 20 years, and music has just shaped so much of my life. And I love to share that with people, whether it's songs that we know, whether it's the sounds of more healing sounds like crystal bowls, and that's a part of our life. And I think the more we can integrate music, the more at peace and the more in unity we become. So
I can genuinely appreciate that. Like we were talking before we started, and we, tore apart our version of music for a little while there, and yours is so eloquent and beautiful. That said, I get exactly where you're coming from. I think that we don't give music enough credit for its capability to affect change in the immediate moment, in the long term, and as a whole with how we approach life in general, personally. I think that music has the ability to guide us much like a soundtrack. It gives us the emotions and keeps us in tune with what we're focused on. If we're in a dark place, you'll hear that dark electric guitar. If you're in a loving place, you'll hear the harp. If you're hearing, drum cadence, somebody's beating a drum, that it's, probably going to war or it's some kind of battle. Music has such a strong influence on humans in general and animals. We see animals that flock to it. You'll see the person with a violin in a pasture with 20 cows standing there, right? It's a frequency. It's something that isn't the same as our other senses. And if we pay attention to it, you can hear how beautiful things are in everything.
It's so well said. And I think music is something that has accompanied all of us throughout our lives. But if we go back and we take a peek into quantum physics, and I think
Hmm.
it's more and more known now that everything is energy,
Yes.
everything, creation is energy and sound vibration. And we too, as a human instrument, we're made of energy that gets compressed and compressed and compressed and becomes sound vibration and light. We just forgot, and in addition to what you just said, I have come to understand as stuff went down in my own life that, guess what? It's not random. And guess what? I'm actually the composer and the conductor and the singer
Mm.
and the musician of exactly how my life is playing out. As you said, soundtracks. It just made me feel like when we can come to that point of view, in spite of sadness, tragedy, illness, whatever, befalls us in our lives, if we can come to that point of view and are able to take the bigger bird's eye view, that I'm not a victim, that these things have happened and I actually orchestrated them.
Yeah, you're
It's
orchestrating or the conductor of your emotions. And when you begin to become mindful, you can see that there is somebody inside of you with the stick in the air asking for the trumpet or the clarinet or something to ramp up, which could be anxiety, depression, worry, happiness, whatever it is. But know that the conductor, you, chooses which instruments you're going to hear, and you will focus on them while you're requesting them. So whether they're good, bad, or indifferent, you're in control of that connection, much like you are your own day to day feelings.
It's so true what you've just said, how clearly you've put it, because I think when I think about growing up and, first you look perhaps to your parents and then you look perhaps to your teachers, and then you look to perhaps the leader in your group or whatever, but we're kind of encouraged to look outside of ourselves. And I think as we get older, we
Mm.
begin to recognize, hey, you know, what you just said, the music's playing here. And hey, I can actually really choose and guide how I respond to things in life. I think that's a really important concept of empowerment that people are recognizing more and more and more. And music has a lot to do with that. Music can help guide us.
I think that's beautiful. Gary, do you have anything you want to interject here? Because you love music just as much as I do or anybody else.
Yeah, I think it's like a metaphor for life, and like it's everywhere. You get to choose what you listen to, what you don't listen to, how it motivates you, or if you motivate it. It's kind of like sometimes people are sad, they want to listen to sad music, and then it keeps like the sad narrative going in their brain, their mind, and like they just
Mm.
stay in there. But some people like they use that to like kind of process it and get it out, and then others like want to go the opposite way with like high energy, like I'm not sad anymore, like I'm gonna, so I think everybody, like, whether they know it or not, they're using it, for different purposes. And I think that, like, I don't know. I think without music, this world would be, I mean, it would be probably over by now. It would have been a world ending war a long time ago. But I think, like, it's one of the very few things that brings people together still when everything's just division now. It's like go to a concert, most of the time, everyone's getting along. So,
And I,
Vibration is powerful like that. It's a frequency. And you brought up something very important. You said that people utilize the music throughout their lives in different, areas to either motivate them or they take on the feeling of that music. And I think it's a great segue into what we're going to discuss because Jeralyn, a lot of people are not familiar with crystal bowls or Tibetan bowls and, these modicums of attaching to the human frequency and affecting change within someone or allowing them those emotional releases. A lot of people have trouble connecting that with modern day, medicine, feeling, how people interpret things. We've been given this lens that says if it doesn't have a coat that's white with a pin in the pocket, then it's something that's not necessarily as credible or something like that, when we know that it's been around long before a lab coat. way before, right? But music in and of itself, utilizing these tones and these crystal crystal bowls are, can you explain to us how something like that, the use of a bowl, would affect change in somebody and how you came into this realm?
Sure, beautiful question. So when I was living in Germany for 20 years and really immersed in classical music, there was a discovery made that they found in the north of Germany these little bird bone flutes.
Hmm.
And they determined them to be between 40 to 60,000 years old. And those little bird bone flutes were based on the pentatonic scale.
Check that
So
out.
I mean, it just, and then we go back in Aborigine culture, and, there's evidence that they've been using their didgeridoos for up to 70 to 80,000 years ago. So sound really is something that has been the people's medicine. And um, I think I always sensed that as a singer. Like I always sensed that when I would be on a big stage with 100-piece orchestra behind me and I had to project my voice into a 3,000 seat hall without any amplification, I had to ground down as that human instrument. And so now, in terms of that, I can talk to people about we each have our own unique vibrational signature.
Mm.
So your timbre, your expression is different than anyone
It's a
else's.
fingerprint.
Pardon?
It's an audio fingerprint.
Yeah, it's an audio fingerprint, a vibrational signature. And I think to recognize, you don't have to be a musician to understand that, but to know that it is our responsibility to ground that, to open it, to free it, and to express it. That's part of I think, our reason for being here. So I can liken the bowls to, they're made of pure quartz. There is evidence that we ourselves have quartz-like structure in our blood and in our bones. So if I think of us and the human being as the original vibrating vessel, the quartz singing bowls are there was something like when I first heard them 18 years ago, I felt like, wow, this is a song. These are sounds that I know. They were so pristine and so clean and so clear, and they evoked some kind of timelessness.
Gary can tell you, I bring this up that I feel like our job in life is to move through it, experience things, and then utilize those experiences to return back to our childhood, to the timeless state that we were most passionate about something. And usually, and for me, it's music. And I feel like I wouldn't have the love affair with music that I have now had I been given the key to it earlier in life. I would have squandered it. I wouldn't have known how to use it. I wouldn't have the pain to be able to put things in there, the perspective, the emotional wherewithal to know what it is that I'm putting together and how it works. And I believe that, much like you're saying, that the onus is on us to find whatever that timelessness is in that point in your life and replicate that. And most likely it's something of passion and something creative, because we learn all the nonsense from society. We're not pre-wired to, for anything but to be musical and loving and things like that. All the other nefarious seasonings come from somewhere else, right? So if we figure out how to express our artistic selves from that place, utilizing what we went throughout our entire life as the palette with the paint, right? To go back and paint with, That's our job, is to return to that time.
Agreed. And I have a distinct memory hearing you speak also about being 4 years old, and I'm on our front porch, and I'm holding onto a post, and I'm twirling around, and I'm singing and moving my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember distinctly, just, again, at 3 or 4 years old, where is your brain? But I remember feeling this connection to God, what I called at that moment in time something bigger than me that felt so benevolent and so loving. And the connection was made through sound and movement. And as you said, like there's also a kind of innocence, a kind of purity. The mind is not in there going, "Chat, lat, 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 lat." And, so when you asked me, like, what is it about the bowls? What I found is that the bowls have a way of like, boom. Suddenly you hear that sound as I tried to describe it to you, and it was pristine, it was pure, it was something that had a timelessness to it. And suddenly my mind was quiet. And in that moment that my mind was quiet, focusing on that crystalline sound and going, whoa, that's music. I dropped into myself. In other words, what we're talking about when we understand that, we have this vibrational fingerprint that's very unique to each one of us. How do we own that, love it, um, um, develop it, and express it freely in the world? That's part of our responsibility, I feel, being a human being. And so the bowls help you to, boom, quiet the chattering that tells us we're not good enough, we don't deserve, we're not lovable, blah, 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 blah. And suddenly you're in the essence of you, and something opens, and there's this huge expansion of, and I'm going to say it, of love. Because for me, music has always been love. From that first moment experiencing God or something benevolent bigger than me, it was love and safety and care, and it gave me a freedom.
I think that's beautiful, the way that you're expressing this. And I think what people should realize is that we all have a lens with regard to how we will give back the information about how we're interpreting our experience when it comes to these loving moments. When we're having our love affair with music, I think that we all experience them differently. I think they're beautiful because of that. I do think they come with a signature. And I believe that we have the opportunity to harness this in a way, or actually, I'll talk about the way that you're explaining it versus if you were to walk over to, or you were to go to India and you were to say, tell me about these bowls. What are they doing and how are they affecting change? Right. And there are exact references to what you're saying in their approach to frequency, chakras, how the body reacts to things. And if we think about it, if we are vibrating, because that's what matter is, why wouldn't vibration do something to vibration? Last time I took two tuning forks and crammed them together while they were going, something's happening, right? And just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not doing it at a certain level. Our eyes aren't capable of seeing somebody shake unless, they had a couple of drinks or something. But I mean, we're all utilizing the same space and we're all vibrating at the same, or at different paces. But at the same time, we have to discuss how both sides of the world are beginning to explain this in a manner that is correlating with quantum physics, quantum computing, and they're all showing how all of these things are actually tied together, right? And I like to point out that there's so many different languages to speak the same love, the same viewpoint, the same landscape, right? No two people will see the same thing, but they're still describing the same area.
Absolutely.
If that made sense, I kind of rambled a bit there, but I am trying to explain that they come in different languages. And I think that we're all describing the same thing, and we need to learn to listen, because if we did, we may get a different perspective out of how we could be enjoying the human experience rather than showing what the difference is.
Right. I'm just thinking, as an opera singer, I sang in many different languages, and some of the languages, obviously, I didn't speak. I had to learn phonetically. And, you get a feel, there's a certain feel to each language. And then you recognize that far beyond the actual words we're saying is, what's the intention?
Mm,
What's the energetic field of that person? What, in terms of music, what are you as this crystalline instrument projecting, amplifying, and how is that being received by you who are in a particular mood at that moment, right? And it's just, if we can keep this communication, as you just said, that we learn to listen to one another and we learn to really hear one another and we learn to open our hearts with compassion. I feel that music is more important now than it's ever been. And I think about a few years ago, I traveled to Tonga and I was really curious. I wanted to go swimming with the whales there, and I wanted to be in the ocean when they made their sounds, which are
oh,
so
that would be really cool.
so incredible and so primal, and got to experience a mother and a baby whale 2 days in a row, same whales, we could identify them, and just the sounds that they made. And then I took the time to sing and teach some of the children there, and most of them did not speak English, but boy, when they saw those bowls, they were like, miss, and there we were. I taught them how to hold the wand and how to play the bowls, and then I invited each of them, boys and girls, to sing with the bowls, and it was like, bah, they totally lit up, and they would sing in their native language. So the fun part of just, especially connecting with children where you don't speak the same language, but you can talk with gestures and with eyes and your heart, and then music, and everybody gets it.
And that's amazing. I did a little research and have some musical theory classes in college still in my brain, but you're talking about 70,000 years old, and the scale that, Native Americans discovered the pentatonic scale or whatever the same way and had a flute with 5 holes or whatever, and the
Right.
Aborigines and the Vikings and everybody came up with that independently over the last 100,000 years for a reason. I think like we got all super high tech and all the science and everything, but it's like coming full circle back to like really like basic things that are, older than we could even fathom. And it's like it doesn't take medicine and all this fancy shit to like know that like this stuff gives you a feeling, it connects people, it connected the whole world since the inception of the world. So I think like it's pretty cool for you to go there and not speak the language, and that, a woman from America, like some kids from Tonga don't have a ton of talk about probably, if they did speak the same language, but instantly like you were all connected. And like they probably still talk about that moment, like remember that? It was
That's
so
beautiful.
cool. Like, yeah, I think that's like
Yeah, I don't know if you both might know this video, but I had the privilege of studying with Bobby McFerrin, who was one of my musical idols, and he used to come to Munich where I was living and play almost every year at the Munich Philharmonic. And I'll never forget, this man would come out, of course he was known for Don't Worry, Be Happy, but he would come out on the stage barefoot and he would just stand there, get present with the 3,000 people in
Mm-hmm.
that theater, and then suddenly he'd start boom, 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 boom. And he's starting to go into this thing. And I remember just being blown away by him and who he was as an instrument, as a human being. But he has an incredible, there's a video, I don't know if you know it, from 2009 World Science Festival, where he demonstrates the pentatonic scale, and he shares that wherever he goes in the world and starts that scale, the audience knows exactly what notes to sing. And,
oh, that's
again,
awesome.
this is for us what you just said. It's the testament to, there's something ingrained
Mm-hmm.
in the very DNA of all of us that knows particular patterns of music. Whether you think like, okay, we stomped them, we toned them many, many thousands of years ago. But I find that so interesting to compare like that and then think about, okay, how do we use the pentatonic scale in today's music? What is that? What is certain combination of notes? What do they evoke in each of us? And to know what you just said, it's timeless, it's ageless.
It is.
That's
It's
awesome.
absolutely ageless. I was thinking as you guys were talking about it, music. I've probably beat the hell out of lyrics more than anything on the planet because you said an instrument. A singer is an instrument. They have an instrument. They're using their instrument, and it's not that I don't care about what's being said because I listen to a lot of foreign music. I don't need to know the words to know the emotion. or what's being conveyed, if it is something that is truly being sung from an authentic place. Like you're explaining, don't worry, be happy. I get exactly what you mean, because when somebody creates or they become an instrument, musical, whether it's, playing an instrument, singing, whatever it is, when they get to that point where they're utilizing that flame inside of them as the sole place that they're drawing upon, when they're reaching out in front of them and conveying whatever this message is, they mean it. That's the ultimate tool. That's when you've met your duty as a person. The onus is on you to replicate that when you find it. And I think you're right about that, dude. I've always loved that song, and it should be corny. It should be something that just normal me would have been, but it always makes me smile. And I think you hit the nail on the head when it's that authenticity. It's coming from that place that when you see Ray Charles, singing when the head's moving, right? That's a place somewhere inside.
Authenticity is timeless.
It is.
I think when you land in that expression of, okay, I am this instrument and I'm expressing myself. And that's why I encourage everybody to hum, to tone. If, and there's so many people have been wounded by being told you can't sing, just keep your mouth quiet, shut and mouth words or whatever. No, because every single human being can hum, so whether you're talking with children or whether I'm working with, Alzheimer's patients or cancer patients or hospice patients or veterans, it doesn't matter. That sound is the thing that you activate your own, as we've been talking about, your unique vibrational, and Om too, your unique vibrational signature, that you feel good in your body when you just when you can make some sounds and feel your own self really vibrate.
Why do we stop humming? I know as a kid, I hummed all the time. I always hummed. Everything I did, anything I was in the moment with, I would always be humming. Why do we stop?
And that's a way as a child that we soothe, that you can soothe yourself. I know when I go to the dentist, I always just instinctively start humming because it just calms down the adrenals and production of the cortisol, right? So humming is just something.
What do you hum? Now I'm curious. Like, what is there a song selection for the dentist?
No, it's just sound. It's just like, hey,
instrumentals.
Calm yourself down.
I get it. I can see me coming up with something just nonsensical.
Inagata Vita.
Inagata Vita.
Hey. Stairway to Heaven, I don't know.
Oh, God.
For me in that moment, it's just sounds. I need something to quicken myself and bring myself grounded so that I don't just go into fight or flight.
What about too many sounds?
What do you mean?
So I myself am much like you. I like a good grounded sound that holds me in place. It gives me almost like a signature for the mindful moment that I'm in, right? It allows me to focus. But if I get too much, I'm out. I start to get anxiety. I get overwhelmed. It's kind of like a misphonia thing, I think it's called, something along that lines. I feel like sound has a way of being beautiful, or it can attack the living crap out of you at certain moments.
Okay, so that's okay. So I've written a book that's coming out July 23rd, and it's called Sacred Vibrations. And to add to that, I feel that when we can go to music with a kind of sacredness or a kind of reverence or a kind of cherishing attitude, we understand that music really is a medicine to be
Mm,
respected and to be honored. And I've never experienced what you just described. I can imagine it when you say it, but for me, I think music has just always been in a structure, whether it's a great Gershwin song or a great whatever. Um, a great pop song, whatever it is, like we listen to music and it gives us this kind of sense of for me, a sense of a sacred container that holds me. And even if it's something that it's, really dancing, moving my body, it's still sacred. So
totally
I
get
feel like
that. I mean, the
that's an important.
jackhammer, the music,
Oh,
and
okay.
the saw, and the this and the that. I break down. I end up collapsing under too many different sounds from the outside. I'm with you. Music is a vessel to accomplish just about anything. There's a reason why surgeons like to turn it on when they're sitting in, operating on someone, because they need the space where they feel most comfortable. They want to bring themselves to that mindful moment. And
Right.
it's like a filament running through you that keeps you lit up. And if you're listening to it, it stays through there and it keeps you grounded. I don't know how else to explain that, but I don't know if that makes sense. But
Totally.
it just flows straight through you and it keeps you in that spot. If you snip it, then you're no longer in control again and you're flowing around until you find another thread, music, whatever it is, and ground yourself again. Music helps me get through anxiety, depression. I also know when I'm not making music. And if I stop making music for a certain amount of time, I start to become more anxious, more depressed. I feel less in my purpose, right? And I know that now that when I'm not fulfilling my purpose of making music and doing, what I'm doing every day, then I start to decay, right? Because I'm not utilizing my full potential the way that it was supposed to be used, right? Made one way to be anything else, slap in the face of whomever or whatever made you. So
Yeah.
I find that health follows it. Health follows that love affair with music and that vibration. And, when you embrace that side of yourself, if somebody doesn't like that you're being, that happy twinkle toes, person that's in love with sound and this, that, and the other, it's only because they're too afraid of getting judged for doing the same thing. Because who's happier, the curmudgeoned ass on the couch judging that person or the person that's twinkle toes right by into the next party? Right? Nobody gets that. Like, just because you're judging them doesn't mean you're in a better spot. It just means that you need to say that about them because it's easier than getting up out of the chair and addressing whatever keeps you from singing.
Yes, absolutely. When you're sharing that, I just think about, because there are so many styles of music and there's so many styles that, you love country and this one loves classic and this one loves jazz or whatever. But I'm just thinking, so a project that's near and dear to my heart that we're putting together in conjunction with the book is, I got to sing a number of the Ninth Symphony of Beethoven while I lived in Europe.
Oh,
So for those of you who don't know that, you may know the melody of it from Sister Act. So it exploded in the United States with they took joyful, joyful, we adore thee. Yeah, so that's the melody of the Ninth of Beethoven, and made so famous in that big dance number, joyful, joyful, we adore thee. So what we're doing is gathering different styles of artists. I'm working with Londrell, who's a spiritual rapper, incredible artist. Johnny Harrison, who's a beautiful kirtan singer. We have some other guests coming on there. And we put together this kind of meditative, which I've called now Joy Reboot. And so it's taking this classic. I mean, when Beethoven wrote that Ninth Symphony in the 1800s, that was revolutionary. There had never been a piece of
100%.
music never been a piece of music like
There are
that. And so,
studies on all of his music that show that mathematically it is so close to so many different things that are discussed in so many different religions. There's transcendental states that have come out of his music. There are claims that you can listen to certain tracks of his and you can find your own form of spiritual awakening if it's that closely followed. It's almost like the math. However it's put together, it has such a profound impact on someone if they're truly focusing on it. And I think that that's that person that acted upon their authenticity and what they felt most passionate about creating. They didn't hold themselves back. They gave into it and followed that path and ended up finding out that they were badass at it. Nobody wanted to hear him. He probably sounded like Two Live Crew to the people at the time. They're like, what the hell is this dude doing? This is insane. But in reality, you know, it's the same thing as every other music. It's just put together in a beautiful way that conveys a message. I love Beethoven. I love how it makes you feel. I feel it's a story. Every time you're in it, you feel like you're on a journey, even if you don't know where you are.
Yeah, I mean, what was funny for me is I was in the 9th month of my pregnancy, and you know, as long as you're healthy, you can sing. And so my son ended up coming 3 weeks early, and so the last performance I did was on January 2nd, and then he came on January 9th, and you know, right after those the series of those concerts. But whenever he would cry, I'd put on that music. Boom, he was quiet in a second. And it was like, wait, what's that? You know, but I didn't know what else to do. I would put on the Ninth of Beethoven, especially the choral part, and boom, he was right back, like in that sense of, you know, what we talked about,
Peace,
timelessness, wonder, joy, peace in my womb, you know.
floating.
So there's so much to say about, you know, about music, but I would love to just inspire people with our conversation and having so much fun being with two musicians that, you know, it's something that everyone can integrate. And what you were saying about in the hospital, what we are discovering more and more now is the music that's your medicine is the music you love. It doesn't have to be Beethoven. It doesn't have to be
No.
Vivaldi. You know, it can be any music that you love. And the doctors can't really prescribe, you know, what that is. So you choose what a lot is happening now is you choose the music as you go into surgery. You choose what you'd like to hear. And to really recognize again that there's not a one size fits all, but to really slow down, breathe, and feel what affects me. What do I love? What makes me want to move? Um, what makes me suddenly, I'm hearing perhaps a happy song, and suddenly it takes me into a place inside myself where there is a blockage that I shoved down, and suddenly that happy song is helping me to release where there's a great deal of sadness or a memory that I just couldn't deal with, so I stuffed it down. So it's never one to one. You know,
Music
happy
is a
songs
time
don't make us
machine.
happy. Yeah.
It's a time machine, not in you're listening to your decade, you know, rolling with the oldies. It's a time
Right.
machine in that it will transport you throughout your linear timeline that you've created in your mind to specific moments where a sound, a type of music, a song, a repetition of something, it will transport you to that emotion, to that feeling in your heart, to, you know, it could be apprehensive, it could be a state of joy, it could be all these weird things. It'll put you right back at that spot. There's not many things out there that have that kind of power. And at least that's how it impacts me. You could pluck one chord, and if I hear it, I'm where, you know, the first time it was impactful when I heard it before. And that's just one note. My mind works that way. It's how I travel throughout time, I feel like, when I think mentally, you know, when I'm breaking down where I've been, it's generally waypoints. Music is a waypoint on the map of life, right?
Yeah.
And you will mark it out, whether it's good or bad, it'll be there. If you turn around and look, and you can be like, bro, I was doing a one leg up over here in the 90s. And then over here, I was doing the waltz. And here I was doing a headbanging thing. And, you know, but these are all euphemisms for this is me when I was depressed and dealing with this type of thing. This is me when I was crossing this bridge with my family and going to this direction. You get to see all those waypoints. And music is like laces, man. It kind of ties it all together when you pull them. You get to feel all of it. You know, everything makes sense.
Right. So, you know, what is it about this, what we call now this field of music medicine or sound healing?
Mm.
What is it about, you know, you asked me, what is it about the Himalayan singing bowls, the metal singing bowls, or what is it about these crystal singing bowls?
Mm.
What is it that makes them different? And I think part of it has to do with the sounds have all kinds of overtones on them. And me coming from a real structure in music, I love to play them incredibly harmonically. I don't believe that I need to give you dissonance in order to dislodge dissonance in you. I feel that my job is to really create truly a sacred container where suddenly you just feel so held and embraced
A
that suddenly you
womb,
begin
if you
to
will.
feel a womb. Perfect. Right. And because we're not using, although I've made albums that I'm singing with the bowls, I'm working with Janae Aiko, who has some beautiful
Oh,
pieces
she's
now with,
amazing.
she's done like a triggered song, and then she's done a triggered protection
Well,
mantra
you're on
with just
Spotify.
bowls.
We listen to you on Spotify. You have beautiful
Fantastic.
tracks there. I loved listening through, and I like Tibetan singing bowls, so I like sound baths. I was introduced to them probably like 5 years ago, and much like you're describing, there is a place to begin to affect change when you're held in that suspended state of that music. It allows you to see basically that you're choosing your reality. And I
Yeah.
love that.
Let me show you. So, for
Yeah,
example,
I was going to ask.
yeah, so what I did here, these bowls are in the musical key of E. So, you mentioned India and the chakras before. So technically the key of E would be the key of the solar plexus. We
Ooh.
talk about your personal power, your confidence, your courage. So, and then you mentioned grounding. So take a listen. This is a very grounding sound. This would be a more centering sound. Okay, so that's an octave up. And then this is a rare sound. This is an octave above that. This is a very accelerating sound. So I like to feel this when I play with 3 octaves like that. That's like what you described before as this vibrating string. So we have a grounding, we have a centering, and we have an expansive, but it's all one string of E. So it's all one string that's working to support my confidence, my courage, my self-esteem, right? So there's so many layers in working with these instruments that are different than working with regular instruments that we know.
Would you say that it's kind of a form of tuning the chakras? Dusting them off? Yeah.
For sure, yes. And so much more.
Yeah, no. And I'm not saying it's not more, but I can see how that would correlate with a particular, issue or chakra, or that vibration could, effectively help you dust it off, to clean it out, to give it, that original feeling. I also like to think about things spinning, and, when you take a string like that, and let's say they had those chakras on there, everybody had like those Popeye candy necklaces that you could pull, right? And it would kind of stretch. And anytime you pull something and you stretch on it that has beads, they spin at first, but eventually they lock in and go really tight and they become even. And I feel like that sound outside of there effectively gives all those beads a chance to come back into line because it's vibrating around it. That's just kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, so listen again. I'm going to add some other notes now and see how you feel. So what I'm doing is I'm playing with what I call the sacred intervals. Just feel how harmonic that feels, and you just, let's see where we go.
It's beautiful.
That's amazing.
You can feel it touching inside of you in different areas. I feel like the denser the sound, the lower the sound, the more that it kind of breaks things up, and that the lighter sounds tend to sweep it away, or whatever that feeling is that it's been broken from. I don't know. That's just kind of my take on it. It feels airy.
Yeah.
When they're a lighter note, it feels airy. That denser note feels like it's impacting something that's harder.
Like that.
Yes.
Feel how that grounds
Yeah,
you.
that's what I mean right there. It's beautiful. So how does someone into this or utilize this as a modicum of, change to help them, soothe themselves or learn from it? How do we get into this?
So gosh, I teach over 120 hours of trainings just because, for me, these bowls changed my life. I lost my son, my only child, 9 years ago. And
I'm so
as you
sorry
can
for your loss.
imagine, yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, nothing prepares you for that as a parent. And we were very, very close. And, you say in grief therapy that when you lose a parent, you lose your past. And when you lose a partner, you lose your present. But when you lose a child, you lose your future. And I've come to understand that I didn't lose him. And I'll show you this picture. So this is if you can see that, this is a picture of
That's a
him.
happy kid, man. Wow.
And that happened with my mentor, Dr. Sue Mortar. That's her holding his picture on the top of Huayna Picchu at Machu Picchu. And that you can't mistake that beam of light, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Right. That's amazing.
it just made me really understand, my goodness, what I said earlier. There's just like a bigger picture to our lives. And we truly are energy. We're sound vibration. We're light. I mean, there's this beam of light coming from the heavens to his throat. And I immersed myself in this world of sound because I didn't know what the heck to do with the grief. And I was asked to go on from 3 different doctors to go on antidepressants. And it was like, I knew at the core of me that if I did that, I would never feel the grief. And I knew that if I couldn't feel the grief, I'd never heal the grief. Right. So for anyone, and you don't have to have a situation like mine, but I'm working with, as I mentioned, children, teens, veterans, hospice patients and their families, cancer patients, anybody, people with anxiety and depression. Like, sound is really the thing that can, as I said, like really quiet your mind, help you feel safe. Then you drop in your body and you feel. And for goodness sakes, there's just feelings, and feelings are energy. So if we can't feel our feelings, we can't heal those things. We
They
can't
will
just
stay
keep
there.
pushing away. Yeah, for sure.
They never go
So
away. It's the rope, Gary. It's the knots in a rope. If you tie your experience in a knot in your proverbial rope of life, you'll have to go back later to untie it. If you deal with the issue in the moment, you don't have to tie a knot in the rope and you get to move on. You remain a usable piece of rope. But if you keep tying knots in it, eventually what happens? You turn into a ball of crap. Then you have to go see Jeralyn, and she's going to use the bowls, and you're going to start untying your knot slowly but surely. And then you won't have to use them again because you now have a new set of tools in your toolbox to prevent you from going down that lane or to help you get back out of it. Because I have issues with mindfulness. I will find myself putting my head in the vacuum of reality and taking on the scenarios that are out there and believing what people say and think of me, or having my ego again, where, what do I think of myself? Where is my position? And then I'll snap out of it. And it's harder to pull yourself back in. But when you get tools like this, right? Real actionable tools that will help you ground yourself and pull your head out of that vacuum, where you get to become an observer again, where you get to become yourself and you get to watch people in their throes, but you get to give them something to strive to be, right? When we take that time to work on ourselves, we give other people license to be their own self as well.
yeah, my son began communicating with me on the night he died through sound. Like I could hear him. It always comes in on the right side, and I can hear him. So, in the process, came this. So this is an inexpensive. This is an oracle deck, and it was the first of its kind. This came out last year.
What is an
That
oracle deck? I've heard it used before, the term, but I don't know what this is.
Cool. Okay, so an oracle deck.
Gary, do you know?
Oh,
Oh, I get to educate you guys. You cool guys. Okay, great. An oracle deck is cards that you choose, and you can ask them a question. And in this case, we did the first, and then you read. In this case, they're made of the singing bowls. So you have this QR code on the front of the card.
Mm-hmm.
You put your phone on it, and it leads you to the recorded sound of the singing bowl. So it's a way of, I would say, asking your higher self to give you some guidance.
Oh, it's an intention
Again,
too.
it's an intention. So they're all different alchemies in the cards. So that was the first project that I did, I'd say, intensely. And then we've come up with an app that's releasing in May. And the app is super cool. It's called Source. And what my intention with my son's support from the other side was to be able to have, there's science on there. So you learn about cymatics, you learn about how does music transform us. There's sound baths on there. There's lectures on biogeometry. There's lectures on energy medicine. So there's stuff for children on it. It's an app that I felt really strongly, I want to make this affordable for people, and I want them to have it in their back pocket. Right. So that's coming out. We have 20 different visualizers on it. It's beautiful content that'll be updated every month. And, it's a way that how can we learn the seriousness and the sacredness of what we're talking about, because it is medicine, and all the peoples of the world have a sense of sacredness around their medicine. But we, in the modern culture, it's like, okay, let's grab this pill, let's take that. This is that was the intention for the app. And then the book, the same thing, Sacred Vibrations, is all about my journey with sound, and then how can we implement this modality in our lives. There's free downloadable meditations in the book. And then we created a YouTube channel a few years ago that has a library of over 200 meditations, including 2-hour loops that people can just play those, and they can cook, they can do their homework, they can relax, they can take a bath, whatever. It's how do we use this kind of sacred infused, intentionally infused music for healing and up leveling? How do we use it in our daily lives? I mean, of course, if people are interested in playing bowls, I teach that. But my big thing, especially after being in Tonga, it was like, and seeing all those children and seeing all the people, it was like, how can I get this kind of medicine actually in their hands? So that was the idea of the app. very well-known scientists such as Dr. Daniel Levitin, who wrote This Is Your Brain on Music, very famous neuroscientist. He's worked with Sting. He's on it. Victor Wooten, 5-time Grammy Award-winning bass player, is on it. Dr. Sue Morter is on it.
I love it.
Jonathan and Andy Goldman. So it's really like, I think the big theme for us today is how do we collaborate with one another? Because we, the people, just like in the Beethoven Ninth Symphony, we got to come together with joy and find unity. That's our job now.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think you're a pioneer when you bring technology and science into the spiritual world, because we're supposed to be combining that. I know a lot of people are afraid of AI and quantum mechanics or quantum physics or quantum computing or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, it's going to give the ability for empathy and spirituality and reverence to be brought back to the medical field, because you will have the opportunity for a machine to break down something that was it's much less fallible than the human mind when it comes to probability or statistics or diagnostics. We know this. It's not great right now. It's going to make mistakes, but eventually it's going to be better than Dr. Bob. And Dr. Bob now still has his role, but his role is now much more patient oriented, able to address all of the soft issues, the things that surround being in a position where you've been diagnosed with something. You're not playing to a box of ICD-9 and 10 codes or whatever like that, and labeling people according to an insurance claim or whatever that might be. Right now, that's all taken care of by AI. That's something that works through, and the doctor gets to say, you know what? How are you doing? Tell me what's going on. Right? The machine already said you have diabetes. Tell me why. What's going on? What can we do to affect change? Not shame you in front of the box that's telling you your diagnosis, but actually sitting down. And I think that we're going to find more empathetic people filling roles and being allowed to interact with people in a manner that medicine didn't allow before because of an IQ or a test or, some kind. I'm not saying that you want uneducated people doing surgery, because I know somebody's going to ring my bell for that. But at the end of the day, if we're if we're giving people the ability to bring what they are naturally able to do to the table, they might be able to affect change in a medical environment that allows for AI to take over the heavy lifting.
I feel like what you said, like just this space of how, coming back to sound and energy, music, how can we empower ourselves in at the highest level of light and love and pure intention for connection and collaboration within humanity? I feel like that's what so many musicians are wanting now. I look at Jacob Collier and like what he's doing, getting everybody singing together. Like it's just, we need this. We need this more than ever. And I just thank you for hosting me and for having this kind of conversation, because it matters.
It does matter. 5 years ago, I wouldn't have said it doesn't matter, but I wouldn't have understood why it mattered. I would have parroted something just like everybody else with a small inkling of understanding, but not at the level now. I believe that it is our onus to bring our deepest passions to the table, because ultimately it's going to create a much more beautiful picture. Like stained glass, everybody's going to be a different shard, but when you back up, you're going to see something that is more amazing than you could have ever comprehended or expected. Gary, what you got, man?
I just think it's really cool using the technology, like the QR code that will connect you to a sound that's like 1 million years old or more. Like, you won't like that. I think that's just really cool, like how the technology is bringing us back to something that's just primal and not a techie thing at all, but it's like the vessel to get there. And I think
they're short, but they're what you said. I mean, they're pure quartz. So quartz is millions of years old. I mean, they're an ur sound. They're an ancient and primal sound, and that can awaken in each of us.
Technology has its place in this. It absolutely does. We found this out with binaural beats, and we also know that the beating of a drum can put you in a shamanic state that will transcend anything that we've got going on. We've been doing that for how long? Right?
Yeah, binaural beats with the crystals. I didn't prepare that for our talk today, but
Oh, we'll do that another time because
insane.
I love
Insane.
like hemisync and binaural beats, and that's a legit area that needs to be revisited. We have pioneers that went in there and stirred the pot and then got slapped by the 90s, said no, that's too frilly foo-foo or something, or somebody wasn't funding it. But it's coming back to the forefront. And I think with quantum computing, we're going to find out some amazing stuff with regard to sound and music.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jeralyn.
Yeah.
I genuinely appreciate you coming on. And thank you for having the wherewithal to realize that you didn't need to go the pharmaceutical route to heal. Not all people have that opportunity. And that's not to say that some people shouldn't, because it also can be a state where it places you in suspended animation to figure out why you're feeling the way you are. But the faster road is for sure to feel the pain in the day. When I talk to friends, or I've had several family members pass away over the last like 4 years, and I've come to one understanding, when I think about matter neither being created nor destroyed and everything is energy, well, then that tells me that if somebody passes, that doesn't mean that they're gone. They're still here. They're just in a different state, right? Because we've already proven that it can neither be created nor destroyed. So in my mind, they're here. They're just not here. It's like a radio frequency, right? Tune to 95.5 and there you are with your boys. Tune it to 87.7 and then you're with the cast of, Golden Girls. And it's just how it works.
I mean, it's so true, but there are times where I say to my son, I don't remember signing that soul contract with you. And when I see you, we're going to have a talk about it, because we do. We have a relationship that's just, sometimes I think about, what if he was far, far away in a foreign country and we had no means to communicate? We would be communicating like we are now. But it's just like, part of you as a human being goes, I didn't agree to that. But he laughs his cosmic laugh, and he goes, Mom, just... get with the program. So, and
it's beautiful that you have that experience. And again, I genuinely appreciate you. You're welcome back anytime. We'll have all of your information in the show notes. So if anybody wants to come and look for your book and your Oracle deck, as well as the Source app coming out, and you said May? May, because I was looking just today and I was like, it's not quite. Not quite.
May.
So, again, genuinely appreciate you. And remember, everybody, be cool and keep learning. Just 1 second.